There's a lot of AI tools competing for enterprise budgets right now. Why Copilot? What made it the right investment alongside what had already been built?
You could definitely say the AI landscape right now feels a bit like a crowded highway. For us, it really came down to two things, risk and relevance. The reality is, if you don't give employees an approved tool, they'll find one. The shadow AI problem is real. Copilot Chat as a standalone tool and Microsoft Teams has been definitely the highest adopted platforms that we actually see usage within the tool. We needed a solution that was safe, governed, and enterprise ready. Copilot integrates right into those workflows, and it's not asking people to change their behavior, it's enhancing what they already do.
In the world of technology, heroes are everywhere. They're overcoming disruption, delivering sustainable outcomes, and fearlessly forging the future to solve what's next. Join me, Ed McNamera, as we meet the people and businesses driving change in our constantly disruptive world. This is Innovation Heroes, a podcast brought to you by SHI.
This episode of Innovation Heroes is brought to you by Microsoft and SHI. Learn how SHI can be your expert guide for AI and Copilot. As Microsoft expands its Copilot offerings like Microsoft 365 Copilot, Copilot Chat, Security Copilot, and more, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Visit shi.com/Microsoft or click the link in the description to learn more.
Here's a question that keeps CTOs up at night. If we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for AI tools, how do we make sure employees utilize them to the benefit of our bottom line? It's perhaps the most strategic part of AI adoption in 2025. Take Microsoft Copilot. Reports have shown 90% of Fortune 500 companies have deployed Microsoft Copilot, but most users using only half of its capabilities. Meanwhile, other organizations are so concerned about data security that they're banning AI tools altogether, but that might not be possible for much longer. Organizations that get AI adoption right aren't just seeing marginal productivity gains, they're fundamentally transforming how work gets done. And the gap between those who succeed and those who struggle comes down to decisions made long before anyone types in their first AI prompt. Today's guest knows this firsthand. Brooke Pieron is Chief of Staff to the CIO at SHI International. She led their Microsoft Copilot rollout that achieved something remarkable: $1.4 million in monthly productivity savings. Even more impressive, her team completed the entire rollout process in 6 months, half the industry standard timeline. Brooke is here to talk about the unglamorous but critical work that makes AI efficient, productive, and any other positive adjective that might come up during the course of our conversation. We'll also explore how they're measuring real ROI and what she wishes more organizations understood about the hidden costs of doing it wrong. If you're wrestling with AI adoption, data governance, or trying to prove business value from your technology investments, this conversation is for you. Brooke, welcome to Innovation Heroes.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. Walk us through the moment when SHI decided to seriously pursue Copilot. What was the catalyst? Was this a strategic initiative or did something force your hand?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was one big lightning bolt moment for us. It was probably a mix of things that made us realize we really can't wait on this. On one side, we saw the Wild West effect, employees experimenting with ChatGPT and other AI tools on their own, which raised real concerns for us about data security and governance. At the same time, we saw customers and competitors that were moving fast, and we knew we wanted to get ahead of it. We'd be playing catch up in a space that's going to be defining productivity for the next decade. So it wasn't really just a top-down executive mandate for us. It was more of a strategic initiative born out of pressure points, risk management, competitive positioning, and frankly, the opportunity to unlock value internally. The why now moment was realizing that generative AI isn't a trend. It's a capability that needs structure, policy, and enablement. Copilot gave us a way to do that responsibly and at scale.
There's a lot of AI tools competing for enterprise budgets right now. There's Google Gemini, standalone solutions, internally developed tools. SHI already had an in-house tool called MindSpark. Kind of walk us through the thinking, in addition to MindSpark, why Copilot, what made it the right investment alongside what had already been built?
Yeah, well, you could definitely say the AI landscape right now feels a bit like a crowded highway. Google Gemini, niche tools, even homegrown solutions like our very own MindSpark were all options for us. So, why Copilot? I think for us, it really came down to two things: risk and relevance. First, the reality
Mm.
is if you don't give employees an approved tool, they'll find one. The shadow AI problem is real. People were experimenting with ChatGPT. That creates for us a lot of security and compliance risks that we can't ignore. We needed a solution that was safe, governed, and enterprise ready, and not a tool that was training its model on our company data. I think additionally for us, our philosophy has always been to meet employees where they work. They live in Teams, Outlook, Excel, not in a separate AI platform. So Copilot integrates right into those workflows, and it's not asking people to change their behavior, it's enhancing what they already do. I think importantly, that wasn't about competing with our internal tool, MindSpark. Copilot complements it. MindSpark is great for custom use cases and innovation, while Copilot brings deep integration across the Microsoft suite. It also has identity, security, compliance baked in, and that combination gave us a lot of flexibility and scale, which was a fit for what we really needed. So the decision really isn't just about picking a tool, it's about enabling AI responsibly where it adds value without creating another silo.
If we're going to talk about, the AI environment at SHI, how do you describe like MindSpark? That was like our first swing at it. Like what was the goal behind SHI developing that on our own?
Yeah, I think MindSpark for us was really tailoring to specific use cases. As a broadly a sales organization, we really want to find out those highest potential use cases that really maximize productivity. And MindSpark helped us do that. We were able to see what are the repetitive tasks that our sales teams, our operational teams are doing day in and day out, and how can we really automate and expedite those? So MindSpark for us was about tailoring to fit employee needs and really making sure that we are serving them with increased productivity. Whereas something like a Copilot is about improving day-to-day workflow and really making sure that we're maximizing our workflows in every capacity.
You're right. SHI is just less than half of our total end user population is in sales, and easily the biggest chunk of, if you're classifying, job function, that's easily the biggest chunk, and it's just less than half. Can you see how the difference between Copilot and MindSpark use is, across the enterprise? Like, do you have like the ability to track, like, here's who's using what and how often, and compare the two?
Yeah, we definitely can track usage by department. I think that Copilot naturally gravitates to a lot of our more operational departments, which is actually a smaller percentage of our employee base. However, what we are doing is really focusing on our learning and development and adoption model for Copilot, and making sure that people understand the full value of a tool like that. I think a lot of people think a tool like Copilot is really just meeting summaries and summarizing emails, and it can do a lot more than that. It can unlock a lot of value.
So you talked about kind of employee training. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about data training for a second. You also mentioned security, and we keep hearing concerns about tools like ChatGPT and training the model on company data. For folks who aren't technical, can you break that down? What does that actually mean, and how is Copilot different?
When you use an AI tool in its public form, every prompt you enter can be used to train that model. So if you paste in a confidential proposal or customer data, that information could become a part of the AI's broader knowledge base, and that's a huge risk for any company. Imagine this: you need a quick analysis, so you upload a confidential revenue report into a public AI tool. It sounds easy, sounds like a quick win for you, but here's the risk. Once that data's in there, it could be stored and even show up in responses to other users. So that means sensitive revenue information could end up exposed to anyone who asks, and that's why governance and secure platforms matter. This is where Copilot works differently. It runs on Azure, stays inside your Microsoft 365 tenant. Your data really never leaves that boundary, and it's never used to train the underlying model, which means sensitive information isn't leaking out to other companies or the public internet.
Even with Copilot's like built-in protections, there was still a lot of prep work, before turning it on. Can you walk us through like what that looked like? And I mean, you kind of alluded to it, but like, were there any like, are you trying to like role play nightmare scenarios and just like, come up with crazy ways to break it, because that end users are either intentionally or unintentionally probably going to do the same?
Yeah, definitely. Turning on Copilot really isn't flipping a switch. I think a lot of people think AI is a really quick win and an easy add, but it's making sure that you really don't create your own headline. Like you said, a nightmare scenario we wanted to avoid was someone asking Copilot a question and suddenly seeing like salary data or financial reports or client contracts that they maybe should have never had access to. That risk, though, comes from poor permissions and poor data governance, not from the tool itself. So that means the prep work to deploy an AI tool is critical. Data classification, permission hygiene, privacy labeling are a few of the prerequisites we had to consider, but we really had to make sure that people see the right data and only that. So we chose Microsoft Purview over other third party tools because it was deeply integrated in our ecosystem. The big unlock for us was working backwards from Copilot. Instead of a 12-month data governance marathon, we wanted to focus on what Copilot really needs to run safely. And that's where we cut the timeline in half, 6 months instead of 12 to become Copilot ready. So I would say like the key message is you can't skip this step. If you do, you're opening up the door to serious compliance and trust issues. You can do it efficiently if you prioritize the right things, data classification, data labeling, data governance policies. But Copilot will amplify whatever state your data's in. So you really want to make sure it's clean before you hit go. And that's the most important.
Yeah, let's talk about that 6-month sprint for a second. When researching what had been done here at SHI, like you said, you completed the Copilot rollout in 6 months, and most organizations take 12. How did you pull that off? Like, what did you do differently? Can you kind of walk us through how all of that was done in 6 months?
Yeah, it was ambitious, but we really wanted to unlock ROI early. We were investing in a tool and we wanted to get it live, and we had some ambitious deadlines to hit. To your point, it takes an army, and I don't think a lot of people plan for that. So one of the biggest accelerators for us was getting really clear on the must-have security and compliance requirements and then turning those on early. So we really worked backwards from an end state and asked what controls do we need in place to enable Copilot responsibly. But that for us started with locking down open sharing links and tightening permissions on unsecure files. We used tools like I mentioned, Microsoft Purview and other monitoring tools, which really helped us to enforce and test policies and vulnerabilities. And then we layered in testing with pilot groups to validate everything that we were doing. So the approach for us was iterative: enable the right features, apply labels, lock down permissions, and then scan, test, analyze, adjust. So for anyone listening, I would say the takeaway is don't wait for perfection. Identify your non-negotiables. Privacy labeling and permission lockdown was a really big one for us. And turn on those right controls early and learn as you go. Becoming AI ready means investing in complementary tools for security and data governance. And that's something that a lot of people don't plan for, but that helped us move fast without compromising trust.
So, of course, I have a completely biased opinion on this next question, but SHI is, I'll say, a young company where our average employee age is, 33 or 34. I don't know if that goes up every year, but I know 2 years ago it was 33 or 34. And it seems like an audience that would be receptive to, you using this like in the workplace. Like, how important do you think it was where that it didn't seem like it needed to be a mandate that came down from the C level? It seemed like users were open, to it. And like, how much do you think that factored into our ability to roll this out and get some acceptance in the user base?
Yeah, I think users are hungry for AI, but they're also hesitant. I think that they believe AI equals job replacement as well, and it's really not that at all. I think that definitely played a factor that we do have the right demographic that's really hungry to get a hold of AI. But for us, unlocking AI return isn't just about getting a hold of AI, it's about maximizing it. So I think that probably helped with initial buy-in and adoption of using the tool. But if we really want people to maximize the investment, we really have to train them on what all it's capable of. And that's a really important piece that we don't focus on enough. So I think that really helped with initial adoption numbers. But I think that our next phase to unlock value is to really get deeper and to define those role-specific use cases and to really train a lot of champions that can help us continue to evangelize a tool like Copilot.
Let's get kind of specific, in terms of where are people actually using Copilot? Are they gravitating towards like Copilot chat as a standalone experience, or are you seeing more, usage embedded in the apps themselves, like Outlook, Word, Teams? Since you enabled Copilot, have you seen a drop off in people using alternatives like like ChatGPT and things like that? Like where are they doing the majority of the work, and what are the preferences?
Yeah, right now, Microsoft Teams is definitely leading the way. I would say about probably 90% of our active users are tapping into Copilot features like meeting summaries, intelligent recaps, chat analysis. Outlook comes probably secondary for us with I think we have about 75% of active users mainly utilizing Outlook Copilot as well for email drafting and summarization. Word and PowerPoint are still in the early adoption phase for us. They're lower to get adoption. I think only about 20% of active users are actively using Copilot for document and presentation preparation. So Copilot Chat as a standalone tool and Microsoft Teams has been definitely the highest adopted platforms that we actually see usage within the tool. But Teams dominates also because that's where collaboration happens. So meeting recap and action item generation are really high value use cases. So adoption there for us was almost immediate. Outlook is strong as well because email is universal and Copilot makes inbox management faster and smarter and easier for the employees that want it. Almost all of us are in our email every single day. So
Right.
it's really for us, I think in terms of next steps, it's figuring out how we also maximize those other platforms and getting people to use Copilot outside of just those easy workflows, like I mentioned before. In terms of, you mentioned shadow AI usage and have we seen a reduction in people using things like ChatGPT or other tools? That is a hard question because we can't directly measure reduction because it's no longer accessible on our corporate devices thanks to our security team. But that doesn't mean that the risk isn't still real. If employees export company data to personal devices or they use public AI tools on their phone, we lose control over all compliance and confidentiality and visibility at that. So that's why for us, providing a secure option was critical because it keeps work inside the walls that we've defined and it dramatically reduces the shadow AI risk.
So you've got the infrastructure in place. Copilot is live. How do you actually measure success? Like, kind of take me through the metrics. I know that there was a $1.4 million, I think, per month savings figure in terms of maybe not savings, but in terms of productivity increases. Like, how do you measure that? Once you get it in place and be able to report it back to the business.
Yeah, well, I think to start it's going basic. Microsoft has a few standard metrics available through Viva Insights, which is where we focus on AI-assisted hours to understand productivity gains. That metric was really cumulative time saved when employees use Copilot to complete tasks. We tracked those through usage and validated against time-saving assumptions for each scenario. So, for example, summarizing a document might save 15 minutes. Generating a first draft could save 30 minutes. These assumptions are conservative and they are directional, but they're based on Microsoft benchmarks plus our own validation with pilot users. And then we multiplied that savings across thousands of actions, which really got us to our main metric of AI-assisted hours. So the dollar savings from that comes from applying our average fully loaded labor rate applied towards those hours. It's not perfect. There's nuance in productivity versus hard costs, but it gives us a directional view of impact. So we're transparent that the baseline methodology is directional, but it's important to be transparent about that because credibility matters. And in July, we saw roughly 6,000 assisted hours in our first phase. By the first month of our Copilot rollout, that equated to about 500K in productivity gains. But by August, that jumped to 17,000 hours, which is around $1.4 million in productivity gains. I think for us, what drove that acceleration was a couple of things. It was really probably broader adoption, increasing awareness and trainings around Copilot and deeper integration into workflows beyond chat and beyond Word. But it was also just really elevating richer use cases for employees as well and really focusing on the enablement of those. But I would say we stand behind those numbers. We acknowledge the assumptions. They are directional metrics, not audited financials. So they'll help us tell the story of impact and guide where to invest next, training, enablement, expanding on high value scenarios. But we are evolving those metrics long term to go beyond time savings and really looking at workflow transformation.
So in terms of adoption, you mentioned that, the real magic happens when people use AI across their entire workflow, like not just in one app. Can you tell us about your platform first adoption strategy? Like, how did you get people to actually use this everywhere?
Yeah. We did learn that turning on Copilot and hoping for it to magically work and gain adoption doesn't happen. So
Right.
adoption is a people strategy. Our approach was platform first adoption, like you mentioned. So training Copilot usage across all of our applications that employees use daily, like Word, Excel, Teams, because that's where the real ROI comes from, is from, like I mentioned, workflow transformation, not isolated usage. So we issued around 4,000 new licenses. We started with mandatory onboarding sessions, ensuring that users really understood not just how to use Copilot, but why it mattered for their role. And when it comes to change management, we really anchored our enablement in structured learning and used the ADKAR framework. So awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement to guide every step. That really meant executive sponsorship for awareness, role-based benefits for desire, hands-on training for knowledge, and then reinforcement through prompts and success stories is crucial for employees to really gain that buy-in. We're always working on maximizing adoption where we can. So for us, the next step is building a train the trainer model by identifying, a lot of different internal SMEs and creating tailored training for different roles within the organization. We want to ensure that Copilot's not just being used for the basic use cases, but instead we want to make sure that we're really maximizing functionality with role-specific enablement.
Agreed.
Here's the reality. Microsoft continues to roll out powerful Copilot solutions. Microsoft 365 Copilot, Copilot Chat, Security Copilot, and more. But with so many options, how do you know which Copilot is right for your organization? And deploying Copilot isn't as easy as flipping a switch. There are critical data and readiness considerations to address first. That's where SHI comes in. Our dedicated team of Microsoft Copilot experts will guide you through the entire journey, from understanding the different Copilot capabilities to ensuring a smooth, secure deployment tailored to your business needs. Whether you're exploring which Copilot solution is best for your goals or you're ready to roll them out, SHI is your go-to partner. Ready to get started? Connect with an SHI Copilot expert today and take the next step towards smarter, AI-powered productivity. Visit shi.com/Microsoft or click the link in the description.
Do you ever envision a scenario where managers, like as part of one-on-ones and things like that, are actually saying, how are you using Copilot? Or just like, tell me, like, what, we're not to the point where managers are, monitoring, Copilot usage or things like that. But I think, like, as important as anything, getting it into the conversation and the one-on-one, relationship between managers and employees, like, seems like a great next step to sharing, like, and people can find a use for it, and sharing with the manager, it'll go like across an organization, right? I mean, is in terms of, training the trainers and things like that, like, does that seem like a logical step, in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it's something I try to do personally within my teams, but it is an interesting question because AI is really only, as in terms of AI metrics and measuring productivity, it's really only as good as the next level you have ready. So we can produce a bunch of metrics and encourage teams for adoption, but also we need to think about how are we enabling the managers to manage to those metrics. So can we also use AI to support automated reporting or to support, really letting a manager know how their team is doing within the AI tool, or if there's people missing use cases or things like that. So it's an interesting question, because I think in terms of adoption, our ability to be successful within it is only as good as our ability to plan for that next level of adoption, implementation, and monitoring. And so we not only have to equip our employees with how to use it, but we have to equip our leaders with, how are they measuring against it? And then also, do they have the tools that are really, expediting and automating that and making even that an easy and manageable task?
Let's talk about investment, talk money. Copilot's per user per month cost can add up, right? When you're looking at potentially six-figure investments for your license base, how do you make that business case back to leadership, and how's that been received so far?
Yeah, that's a great question, because one misconception I hear a lot is that AI should immediately translate into cost reductions, headcount reductions, et cetera. And, financial leaders would love to see a straight line from investment to cost savings, but that's not always how it works, at least not in the short term. So I would say AI is really a force multiplier. It's not a magical wand. It accelerates work, it improves quality, frees up capacity, but those gains really show up as faster project delivery, better customer service, better customer experience, and reduced burnout. It's not always immediate headcount reductions or layoffs or things like that. So it's important to understand that the return on investment from AI does take time. And it's also important to understand that the investment isn't just the tool license itself. Copilot at $30 per user per month may sound manageable until you multiply that across hundreds of thousands of employees and then add the cost of data governance and security tools on top of that, because AI is only as good as the data it can safely access. So if your data is messy or exposed, you're not just wasting money, you're creating risk. So the full picture really includes licenses, governance, security, and the people to manage it. So I would really tell people that you have to think of AI as a long-term strategy. The real ROI comes from scaling innovation, reducing operational risk, and staying competitive. If your competitors are using AI to deliver faster and smarter and better than you are, and you're not, then you're falling behind. So break even may take 12 to 18 months in terms of productivity returns, sometimes longer because adoption, training, governance takes time. But once embedded, AI becomes a part of your operating model. Your teams can handle more work, they can innovate smarter and better, and they can handle more without adding headcount, and you can redirect your talent to higher value initiatives instead of repetitive tasks.
And I love kind of the soft costs that are really hard to measure. One, when you were talking about burnout, I mean, like in trying to eliminate like some of that, but also when you were talking about like our primary use, in terms of using it with teams and summaries, meetings are expensive. And if they're not summarized and there's not follow-up, it becomes even more expensive because that was a loss of a half hour or an hour meeting for everybody on that group. So I don't know how you measure that, but like there's even like, I'm sure you're way ahead of me, but there's even soft costs that are like, yeah, like we don't even really know like what those real numbers are. Just and you take an expensive meeting and actually make it count, So it's very, very cool to see that in practice. But you're now several months into this journey, and we'll talk about the pitfalls for a second. What do you wish you'd known at the start? And if you're advising another organization on, if they're, where we were 6 months ago, and then in theory they could be, in their mind 12 months away, like. If they're ready to enable Copilot, like what warning or what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think that everyone thinks that the hardest part of the process is picking the AI tool you need. And for us, that was Copilot. But what people don't think about is they really need to think about the governance platforms and the security protocols that they need to put hand in hand with the tool at the same time. I would say if I were to give other organizations any type of warnings, it would be don't overestimate readiness. Just because your data lives in Microsoft 365 doesn't mean it's clean, classified, or properly permissioned at that. Copilot will surface what's there, good or bad. So you have to be ready to complement that with the right data governance protocols and tool sets along with it. I think another one would be lock down permissions early. We had near misses where Copilot could have exposed sensitive content because of legacy permissions being too broad. So you have to audit those and tighten those before rollout. And then I think lastly, it's invest in training. Users need to understand what Copilot can and can't do and how to avoid risky behaviors like exporting data to their personal devices or public AI tools. They also need to understand that it's not just about meeting summarization, and it's not just about summarizing your emails, but it can do a lot more than that. So investing in training up front really helps with adoption and maximizing.
Looking ahead, you're at 40% adoption today, with some really impressive results. Like, what does the next chapter look like? How do you see AI changing how work gets done at SHI over the next 12 to 18 months, even knowing you're 6 months ahead of schedule already for where you wanted to be at least?
Yeah, well, we're already seeing AI move from being a helpful assistant to become a core part of how work gets done. But I would say the next chapter is about scale and depth. Over the next 12 to 18 months, our goal is to push adoption beyond 70%. Might be ambitious, but I think we can do it. And making AI a standard tool across every function, not just those early adopters or traditional roles that are using AI today. So we would be focused on I think really role-specific use cases, for example, enabling account executives with AI-driven customer insights, giving project managers predictive analytics for resource planning, or empowering IT teams with automated governance and compliance checks. These aren't just incremental improvements, or they fundamentally change how decisions are made and how quickly work moves. So we're also seeing new use cases emerge in knowledge management, customer engagement. Teams aren't just using AI individually, they're starting to collaborate differently across departments because AI is surfacing context and connecting dots between teams that maybe have never had dots connected before. And that's really a cultural shift. So less time searching for more information, more time innovating together, more time breaking down silos and working better together. And ultimately, this evolution is about moving from AI as an assistant to AI truly as a co-pilot for our business. It's not replacing people, it's amplifying their impact, and the momentum is real. Every success story that we're able to show and demonstrate builds confidence in employees, and it fuels creativity too on how they can innovate. So the possibilities ahead for us is really about innovation, accelerating transformation, and unlocking new values for our customers, because that's exciting and we're just getting started.
Yeah, we talked a lot internally about how we're using it, but that last piece that you said there, it's unlocking value for the customers by making everybody, within the company more valuable and more efficient. And I know that's, we're a privately held company, and that's the goal: put a better product out there for the customers. So, that's a great way to end. One of the things I appreciate about Brooke's approach is that it's refreshingly honest about what AI adoption actually requires. There's no magic bullet here, just disciplined work on data governance, security architecture, and change management. The organizations succeeding with AI aren't the ones with the biggest budgets or the flashiest pilots. They're the ones willing to do the unglamorous preparation work that makes adoption possible. If you're thinking about Copilot or any enterprise AI deployment, here's my takeaway. The technology could be the easy part. The hard part is getting your data house in order, making smart build versus buy decisions, and creating an enablement strategy that actually drives adoption and proves to the end users that it benefits them every day. SHI's story proves that you can move fast without breaking things, but only if you put in the work up front. Thanks to Brooke Pieron for sharing the real story behind the metrics. If you want to make AI work for your team, SHI can help. Visit SHI.com to learn all about our AI deployment and adoption services. If this conversation sparked ideas about your own AI strategy, or if you're wrestling with similar challenges in your organization, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us or share this episode with someone you think needs to hear it. Until next time, this is Innovation Heroes. I'm Ed McNamara.
Thanks again to Microsoft and SHI for sponsoring today's episode. If you're ready to take the next step towards smarter, AI-powered productivity with Microsoft Copilot, including Copilot Chat, visit shi.com/Microsoft or click the link in the description.